Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Roaring Agents podcast. Today, I am here with Phil M. Jones. He is a master of influence and persuasion. He is the author of 7 best-selling books, including the influential book, Exactly What to Say. What my audience will appreciate is that he helped grow an independent real estate business to a revenue in excess of $240 million with a sales team of just 5. That's pretty impressive, and I think we all need that help. And with Roaring Agents, it's about finding your voice. And I think, Phil, you're going to be really instrumental in helping people find that way to find their voice and take that next step. So thank you for joining me.
Hey, a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
So what exactly to say? How did you get to this point where you wrote the book?
Oh, man. The whole body of work around word choices, magic words, finding the right words at the right time has lived in my body of work since before I even had a training, coaching, consulting business. So we go back to pre-2008, and I had a number of successful careers through department store retail, furniture retail, Premier League soccer clubs, plus the property business, etc. But I found myself often in training capacities and training roles in addition to my core role. And anytime I'd write and create and produce a training, the thing that people would often remember is still using your magic words, Phil. Still using your magic words, even people that were like a decade past the point that we'd first come into contact. 2008, I started a small sales training company. We would run one-day training workshops, built a coaching practice, consulting practice, info products, etc. off the back of that. And still, the big takeaway and feedback forms from many was always loved the simplicity of magic words, loved the precision around the exact thing to say at the exact right time. Maybe fast forward till 2011, find myself in a mastermind group with some other speakers, coaches, consultants, and we were talking about book publishing. And they shared with me how difficult it was to publish a book. And I'm like, it's not that hard. I mean, with all the self-publishing tools that were available at the time in 2011, you could turn a book around in a couple of weeks. Fast forward that story, and what we're now having is a put your money where your mouth is, Jones, type moment. And goal was to be able to then put a book out within 2 weeks. So I ended up crafting a book called Magic Words. What Magic Words was me taking a PDF that I'd used as a training for telco customer service reps the day before, and the 2-page PDF was 17 sequences of words to influence and persuade without sounding salesy. Took that PDF, blew it up, and made a bit of a book out of it. Call it a book, it was more of a pamphlet than a book. But it met the criteria of a book. We published it on KDP, got 120,000 downloads in what was a relatively short period of time. And I'm like, oh, dang, I might have something here. That book lived as a lead capture. That book lived as a giveaway at the end of speeches for a fair chunk of my career. And it was never a book I was insanely proud of. It was just a useful tool, like a useful giveaway, a useful +1. Magic words would fall themselves as part of my speeches still. They would be a highlight takeout on many of my keynote presentations. Fast forward to 2017, I'm moving from the UK to the US, changing my geographic base. Thinking that what I want to do is to move from being an international speaker and to spend more of my time as a speaker in the North American marketplace, both for lifestyle purpose, plus it's a more prolific, more profitable market as a speaker, trainer, coach, consultant than any other market. I'm like, I want to be here. Need a new book to be able to get more visibility on the radar of speaker bureaus. And then realized, you idiot, Phil, why on earth would you write a new book? What you've got is an EP in the past that actually got some good traction that people would quite like, that you self-admittedly didn't do a very good job of, that is actually one of the most meaningful parts of your entire body of work. Why don't you finish the job? So that's what then became Exactly What to Say, was the rewrite of Magic Words. And my whole goal was that this is work that I've been training, workshopping, delivering for over a decade of my professional career in the training personal development space. So I wanted to go against the grain of a traditional book and wanted to create the biggest tiny book possible. So how do you produce something where the form actually follows its function? I'm training entrepreneurs, real estate professionals, sales professionals. The one thing all of these people are is time poor. If they're any more poor than anything else, it's attention poor. So time and attention are not the attributes of my primary target market audience. So we wrote the tiny, massive book, which is exactly what to say. And the hardest challenge in that is what you leave out. And it is 23 sequences of words that talk straight towards the subconscious brain. But what's been magic about it is how universally applicable it is. It's taken me now into over 800 different industries, which is a ton of fun. So that's how we got to where we're at right now.
You said the key word, not being salesy. And a lot of the agents I talk to, that is the biggest fear of being salesy. Where is that line, and how do you make sure that, how does your words help them not be salesy?
Is the bulk of the words in the book are merely prefaces for questions. They give you permission to be able to ask the question that you're really looking to be able to ask. And they insert curiosity. By inserting curiosity, what you learn is you understand more of the other person's context. Nobody's interested in what you're selling until you show enough interest in them and who they are and what their unique set of circumstances are. We're here talking to real estate agents right now. Real estate agents need to be aware that nobody wants to buy a house. I mean, nobody wants to buy a house. Equally, nobody wants to sell a house. People want to buy a house because, and people want to sell a house because. So what your goal is to not be salesy is to forget about the fact that you are in the business of buying and selling houses and realize that what you're really in the business of is helping people. And if you can understand the unique goals, objectives, ambitions that other people have, of which buying or selling a house could help enable, you will not be salesy. However, that isn't as simple as saying, please tell me your unique goals, ambitions, and interests. And when you tell me those, I can be more helpful to you. It's collecting the evidence of what's really going on in other people's lives in a more skillful way so that they can reach their own conclusions as to what the right thing is for people to be able to do. Being brilliant in a sales environment is not the stereotype of what people think is being brilliant in a sales environment. Some of the best sales scenarios that have ever come up in your life, my life, and in everybody's listening here's right now's life, you never saw it as a sales transaction. But it was. The model of Wolf of Wall Street or Glengarry Graham Ross or Always Be Closing, etc. That's not a 2023 model. That's not a formula for success. What is a formula for success is to be curious enough to understand somebody else's context, have enough empathy to be truly relatable, to hit the show me that you know me button, to go side by side with people, and then having big, brave courage to invite people to take a next step. That's it. It's actually a leadership role, helping people to be able to make decisions. And when done right, the way you are not salesy is you approach every conversation from a position of neutrality. You don't have a bias on what the outcome should be when you start the conversation. You just have a responsibility to help somebody make the right choice. And if you show up neutral with a commitment to helping the other person make the right decision for them, you'll never be salesy a day in your life.
Sales has a lot of different definitions. And one thing that I've said to people is that, this is not TVs, this is computers, whatever, that I feel that this is more service than sales. But there still is a sales element. You're not selling the house, but you're selling yourself.
Right.
What's your definition of sales, and how is sales different in real estate versus, you have a history in furniture and some other things?
Yep.
What's that kind of difference?
Well, the universal definition that I choose to use for selling is one that I wrote, which is selling is earning the right to make a recommendation. What that means is that you should never, ever, 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 ever advise somebody to do something unless you can say these words first. And the words you should look to say first are the words because of the fact that you said. Because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, then for those reasons, what I'd recommend is blank, blank, and blank. How does this show up in a real estate scenario? Well, it's identifying where the moments of salespersonship exist in a real estate customer-client engagement. Very rarely is it to do with a house. More often than not, it's to do with a decision that makes up the total components of the transaction as a whole. Now, a simple example of that would be why you, as opposed to the other pretty decent real estate agent down the street that is offering to provide somewhere like the exact same service for 1% less as a listing fee. That's a sales moment. Other sales moments that show up is inspection comes in and the inspection says that there's $8,000 worth of repairs that are needed to make this house viable. Who pays? How does the deal continue to be able to progress? What is the agent to agent conversation to be able to find some form of agreeable outcome that allows us to be able to get this to the closing table? Where else are there moments? Is on the buy side, is somebody likes the house, they really like the house. They really, really like the house, and they're looking for you to be able to help transfer some confidence into them to actually be able to make a decision to move forward with what to pay and what other terms should be in their offer in order to be able to move this forward. But there are probably 30, 40, 50 very precise moments that we could identify in the world of real estate where salespersonship exists, where what you say, how you influence the behavior of others could have you coming in first place or second place. And the trouble with second place is it doesn't pay too well. There's no silver medals, right? You don't get put on a podium and a fanfare and get something to take back to your country and get heralded a hero. You just get nothing. So I would be saying to every agent right now is, can you identify the most critical moments in your conversational tracks where an element of sales and persuasion skills would have the highest impact for you in your own unique set of circumstances? There are a lot of agents that have been really good on the buy side that, have never really had a listing other than the listings that they've run for their friends and family. So what am I looking to do there is to help them upskill their confidence and competence in a listing appointment with a stranger when they're up against somebody who has a level of tenure and maybe a set of resume points that on paper crush you. If you're a solo agent and you've never sold a house before and you're up against an experienced team with a marketing division that looks like that they are really a small television production company and has a proven track record of selling luxury listings more than anybody else in your marketplace, and you are one of the 3 agents they're interviewing, you are the underdog. These are where sales skills are required. And this isn't trying to out big guy the big guy. This is where you learn how to be able to help people see that the little guy might be the best solution in this given set of circumstances.
What are some angles? Because there are a lot of little guys who listen to the podcast who are up against those big teams. What are some angles that they can go without being, misleading, right? Sometimes that's the instinct some people have, is like overpromise whatever. How do we...
Right. Well, what you've got to look at is where are your strengths? If I'm an agent right now and I want to win more listings, is I would for sure be doing a SWOT analysis. Very basic business action to be able to take is a SWOT analysis is grab a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper, draw a line top to bottom down the middle, draw a line left to right down the middle. You got 4 boxes. The S stands for strengths, the W for weaknesses, the O for opportunities, the T for threats. It's a basic business principle. And I'd be writing, well, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? What are my threats? I'd get crystal clear on this. And you start to realize that some of your strengths are hunger, passion, tenacity. Some of your strengths are that you are a single point of contact. Some of your strengths is that selling this house means more to you because it will be the only house that you've sold this year. It has the chance to be able to catapult your career. In fact, your life and your family's life are dependent upon it. Whereas to the other guy, it's just another house. It's just a Tuesday. What opportunities do you then bring with this is the chance to be more creative, the chance to be able to put sweat equity into the relationship to be able to get this done, the chance to be able to maybe put your best foot forward with being creative around how you might do their open house, or why you might create outreach to unique groups of people, or what you might do to customize the email and the video and the marketing pieces that only you can do that other people can't. Like, you can't out big company when you're a small company, but you can out small business them. You can out hustle them. You can outthink them. So I'd be looking to say, what is my best version of truth, and how does that compare up towards others? And if one of your weaknesses is you don't have a team, the flip of that could be a strength. Only one point of contact, that you're not having to deal with somebody who doesn't understand you, that hasn't been in your house, that is going to put layers of bureaucracy through the decision making that needs to get done. You should be able to argue both sides of an argument if you're going to be good at this kind of work. So you should be able to play for either side and realize how you could win on either side.
Yeah, I was a solo agent and then I joined a team as a director of sales and I had to do that flip. And I was like, well, I used to say this about teams and now I need to say this about teams.
Right.
What were some of the things that you did to help that team get to 250 million?
I mean, mostly the biggest thing that we did is found ways to operate at scale. And that came very intelligently through building strategic alliances and referral partners that allowed us to find clients not one at a time, but 10 at a time. So our primary sales approach was to share our initiative of freehold investments in Cyprus, which is what we were selling at the time, to independent financial advisors as a genuine wealth creation alternative to a pension or a 401k if we're talking to the US. And what it meant is that we would be winning appointments with independent financial advisors, walking them through our model, selling them on the concept of home ownership overseas and what the rental model would look like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then created win-win-win scenarios into that IFA network. So that meant introduce us to your clients. And when they go on to be able to do business with us, then there's something in it for you. The something in it for you was often that because we've done such a good job of selling our strategic alliances on the idea of buying, is instead of paying commissions, we help them fund the down payment of their own purchase through referral fees. So it meant that if I could meet an independent financial advisor, get them to like the idea well enough to pay a small deposit, put it down on one themselves, is I'd actually then have them kind of on my payroll for the next 2 years in a build period, because they either had to pay their deposit with hard cash or make meaningful introductions into their client base. Not only that, the strength of an introduction into their client base is I've bought one of these, you should buy one too. So our conversion rates were significantly higher because of the transfer of trust that existed in the front end of those transactions. It meant that our sales process was rapid and scaled from the very, very start. How does that translate to agents in this given market? Is I'm 100% certain that every single agent, whether a solo agent or a team lead, has the ability to develop 1, 2, 3 far more powerful strategic referral partnerships than they currently have. Is there are people that hold equity within the decision-making process of house buyers and sellers that could be pointing more of that traffic in your direction that right now are spraying and praying it everywhere with no good purpose. So I'd be looking to say, how do I find a few of them in my favor?
Yeah, those strategic alliances are very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
One definition I heard of sales was the transfer of confidence.
Sure.
And in real estate, a new agent, the amount of new agents who get in this with no plan, no idea of what they're doing is kind of shocking to me. It just sounds like fun to them, I guess. But you have buyers, you have sellers. You have buyers of all different price points and experience. You have sellers, you have marketing, you have all these things. Then you don't know what to say. You don't know where to start. Confidence, I think, is the biggest hurdle that a lot of people have to go to cross. Some have confidence without actually experience, which is the worst thing. But how do you
arrogance.
build,
That's called arrogance. Confidence without experience is actually arrogance.
Those people drive me nuts. So how does an agent build that confidence when it's so wide of the things they need to get to take that next step?
The first thing you have to be aware of is that you're looking to fast track experience. You're not looking to gain confidence. You're looking to fast track experience. Some of that just comes from getting the reps in. Don't be too big to do the work. You know, if somebody's got a $1,500 a month budget for a rental and they need to find a place, then go take care of them, particularly if you want a career for the long run. Like if you've got time and space on your capacity, do the ugly, boring grunt work that doesn't pay too well, because those reps will develop your relationships. They'll allow you to be able to make mistakes in lower stakes environments. They'll give you some of the battle scars that are going to be beneficial to you in the moments that matter, that could pay you more in the long run. The other thing I would do is I'd fast track experience by learning from the people that have walked the path ahead of you. Now, that could be from hiring a great coach. That could be from making a decision to interview, sit down, take for dinner, take for lunch, grab cocktails with other agents in your community that you respect. and look to be able to get their stories to become yours by them being secondhand in your world. That would fast track your experience. Better than all of this as well, though, is can you interview people that have bought and sold houses over the last 3, 4, 5 years and ask them what 3 things they've liked best about the real estate agent they work with? And if there was one thing they could change, what would the one thing be? Ask those 2 questions on repeat to people that have bought and sold houses in the last 5 years. You're going to garner a lot of experience, because you're going to start to realize, well, I would never do that. I could do more of that. That's definitely not me, etc. You can find your voice and your space within all the past experience of other people who've been on the consumer side of things. And the market is controlled by the consumer. So look to gain some wisdom, some insights, some real front row empathy into what's been real in their worlds. Now your confidence is growing because your experience is growing, and you've done it strategically to accelerate that experience. You can cover 6 years worth of experience in 6 months worth of strategic meetings and discussions.
So once they have the confidence, then they need the courage. And you said confidence without experience is arrogance.
Yeah.
Same thing with courage. There's a lot of people who are super courageous and they're going out calling FISBOs, telling them they're their best, and then they fail, whatever. Can you talk about your take on courage and what it takes to take that step?
Yeah, it is. What we are is professional mind maker-uppers. We are decision catalysts. That's the purpose of our role. So what we're actually looking to be courageous about is courageous to help other people to find the confidence in them taking the next step. Now, if you run around courageously asking for people to do what you want, you, my friends, are pushy, obnoxious, you are self-serving, that you are serving your own agenda. If by alternative, you're curious enough to understand somebody else's context, you see the world through their eyes, you become empathetic, you're relatable, you hit the show me that you know me button, you understand the problem that you're trying to solve, and you then are courageous enough to invite them to take the action that you believe is the right next action for them. Now what you are is you're helpful, you're kind, you're on the same side, you're consultative, you're all the things that you want to be. So courage needs to exist, but the timing of that courage is important. You all know that if you do not ask, you do not get. We know that to be true. I'll take it one stage further and say that your success is in direct correlation to the quantity of quality asks that you make in your life, period. So learning how to ask people to take action is really the primary skill of being a real estate professional. And that action could be introductions to friends and family. That action could be somebody coming to one of your events that's been hosted by your team lead or your brokerage. That action could be somebody committing to be able to submit an offer. That action could be somebody deciding to accept an offer that was less than perfect. But if you're not asking somebody to take an action that you believe is right for them after asking curious questions, empathetic questions, and getting to a point of full context, your courage is going to be received as pushy. If the courage is well-timed and your ask is well-timed, it is deemed as helpful. And I believe that one of the greatest compliments that you can get is that you were really helpful. I think that is a gift of a compliment that often gets overlooked. Not you were awesome, you were remarkably helpful, because it's gratitude in disguise.
I like that, having the empathy and curiosity first. Can you talk a little bit about just that there was something you had about curiosity. If you don't have curiosity, you bring in certainty.
Correct. If you show up to a conversation certain of the outcome, certain of the point of view you want to project, certain of what you think somebody should do, then what you actually do is you create uncertainty in other people. Is you, I, everybody else listening in has been on the receiving end of somebody showing up with what I would call like an I know best mentality, where they're so sure of themselves, they're projecting their point of view onto you. And it's almost certain that your inside voice is crossing its arms, kicking back and saying, really now, huh? There actually is a friction created that says, I now want to prove you wrong because you are so sure you're right that I want to find the crack in this. By alternative, if you show up with curiosity, you understand their context and you can't be wrong. That's the difference that comes from being able to approach things this way around. And in every conversation, you have content that you'd like to insert. If you insert content before you've earned context, then what you did is you just made a noisy situation noisier. I'll explain a very simple mistake that many real estate professionals make is they run out into a market saying things like, now's the perfect time to buy a house and now's the perfect time to sell a house. They create content and punch it out on their social media about like why now is the perfect time to be able to buy. And what happens is I now don't believe you, because is today the perfect time to buy a house? Maybe. The answer is it depends. Maybe. Is today the perfect time to sell a house? The answer is depends. Maybe. If you cannot explain what it depends upon and why maybe it would be right for some and wrong for others, then you're not very helpful. What you are is you're pushing your agenda. And if you're pushing your agenda, then you, by definition, are pushy.
What's frustrating to those of us who are not pushy is that the pushy people also seem to win more often than not. It's what it appears to be.
Only because the non-pushy people leave the game or aren't in the game at the final mile, meaning that the only person who sat at the table inviting somebody to take action is the pushy person. Because what happens is I see this a lot with agents as well, is that they get to know people, they get to like people, they get to trust people, they make great friendships, we're all good buddies, we've been to seen a load of houses together, everything's awesome, they found a house that they like, and we're at that point of they need to make a decision, and we're like, well, whatever you think is right, you do that, and I'll support you with whatever it is that you want to do, and we'll leave it with you, no pressure, I mean, we're ready when you're ready. And we bow out of the game, expecting the other person to be able to impart the confidence we're lacking in ourselves by entrusting us with the decision and the action. You have to accept that you are involved in the decision-making process. It's a leadership role, there's a responsibility that comes with it. And having the courage to invite people to take the next step is the only way you're going to win. If you're not in the conversation in the final mile, and the only people are the ones that are knocking on the door saying it's go time, if you don't sell right now, then what's going to happen is that your house is going to be worth less in 6 months. Come on, it's go time. I've got buyers ready. I've got people lined up to be able to run the open house. I've got an email ready to go to a number of qualified buyers. We've got off-market people that are ready to go. Let's go. If you're not in that conversation with a rational second voice, who should the consumer choose? The person that has confidence that they can achieve the outcome, or the person that's demonstrated zero confidence looking for you to carry all the risk yourself as the consumer? Which one would you pick? You might not like it, but there is no viable alternative.
So a piece of confidence is that we have to have confidence in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to that new agent who hasn't closed a deal.
Buy side or sell side?
Buy side.
Okay. They can't have confidence. They can have commitment. They can have hard work. They can have dedication. They can have passion. They can have care. They can have compassion. They can't have confidence. They can have a completely different set of ingredients that makes up their value. And guess what? There are enough buyers out there that would be very happy to know that that's all you have to offer and to give you a good shot. But what they might want is they might want some borrowed confidence, that you have all of those ingredients, but you don't have the experience. What they might want to know is the good news is that you get all of that tenacity and vigor and hard work and dedicated effort, plus the good news that I'm just out of school, I'm newly qualified, so I know the rules, I know the nuances, I know how things work in 2023. I've just come off the tests. I promise you, I know I got the piece of paper to say I know. But what else I have is that I'm part of a very experienced real estate team that has a body of over 25 highly skilled, highly experienced agents. So at any point in time, if we come across a crossroads or that we've got, maybe a complex moment or a complex decision that needs to be made, I have access to some of the best in the business that I can reference on those key points. So what you end up with is like the best of both worlds. So you have to be able to play your deck of cards and play your deck of cards well. And if you don't have the confidence and experience, that's all good reason as to why you should be part of a team or a collective or a brokerage or a business model within real estate that provides you the support that you need, that you've got an intelligent sounding board that can respond quickly.
You know, that part about being new is so scary for agents to say, but your point about I just went through the classes, I just did this. When I became a principal broker after 4 years in, I went through the classes and found out that my two previous principal brokers were wrong because they were on
Right.
old information.
Right.
And I was like, oh, wait. So sometimes it is actually better to be new because we get complacent over time. And I've told some of the new agents, that's your angle. You're on
Yeah.
top of things. Technology has moved so fast in the last 20 years. You're ahead of a lot of agents who are claiming, hey, I've been doing this for 40 whatever years.
Yeah. And you're hungry. And the other thing also is like attracts like. Like, let's assume that what you are is you're a 31-year-old newly qualified real estate agent with some experience of a past career that's decided that you want to be able to use the next decade of your professional life to grow a real estate career. Is go looking for clients that are something like you. Where are the 29-year-olds, the 31-year-olds, the 34-year-olds that are looking to move out of a rental and step into their first home that would actually be really happy to have an agent that's prepared to open more doors than most, that's prepared to have the empathetic approach that that you know what it's like to be able to move from a rental to a house that you purchased because you did it 18 months ago. Like that you are the most relevant person to be able to serve that group of clients. So I would, if you're lacking confidence in the skill set to transact on real estate, look where you do have experience, i.e. go fishing in a group of people that you understand remarkably well. And the best group of people to serve is like you, but 2-3 years ago.
Mm.
And now all of a sudden you can be strong in understanding that type of person. You know, the pressures, the challenges, the obstacles, the wins that exist in their life, and you're more relatable.
You had a good story about when you were doing furniture sales, how you kind of positioned where you answered the objections before they came up. You had them talk. How would you apply that to real estate to pre-answer objections?
I find it fascinating in the real estate industry that people pour time, effort, and energy in on showing houses, meeting with people, sending emails, text messages backwards and forwards. And then an objection appears 9 weeks later. And the agent's like, I didn't see that coming. I'm like, how did you not see it coming? It was inevitable that was coming. There aren't very many curveballs in this industry. Much is pretty predictable, yet still we find ourselves surprised when people say things like, oh, I think I'm going to wait for the rates to drop or the market to crash, or I'm just going to maybe need to speak to my partner before I make a decision on this, or I think we might look to be able to sign our lease for another year and just push it back and see how things are looking in 24. And all this stuff that gets said on a repeat basis is pretty darn predictable. Let's find a real life example. Like, so if we're going to prevent an objection, we're going to mean it doesn't show up rather than we learn to overcome it. What are we looking at that's ridiculously relevant today?
I think the market's going to crash is a big one. Interest rates, I'm waiting for them to drop is probably the big one right now.
So if we're going to deal with this at the path ahead of it actually coming up, is you're going to learn to ask questions like, what do you understand about what's really going on in the market today? What do you think most people are going to say when you say, what do you understand about what's really going on in the market today? What are most people
I've read
going to say?
a few headlines. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how certain are you that now is a good time to be able to buy?
Kind of certain.
Okay. Well, for how long have you been thinking about purchasing a home?
A year.
Okay. So just a year. And how important is it to you that you actually do own a home at some point in time in the future?
Oh, very important.
Okay. But like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being it needs to happen and 1 being it's a cute idea, how important is it that you actually become a homeowner?
9, 8, 9.
Right. So it's a pretty big deal. Okay. And what would happen if you didn't end up buying a home this year? What would you do instead?
Just keep renting.
Okay. And you have the ability to be able to do that you've spoken to the landlord, you know what your terms are going to be for a future year?
At least for the next 7 months.
Okay. So we got a pretty tight timeline to be able to do something. How long do you see yourself living in this neighborhood?
It's a little far away from work. I don't know. I think I
Okay.
could wait it out 3 years.
Okay. And if you were to buy in the new neighborhood, how long do you see yourself living there?
The place I'd like to be, until the kids are out of school. So 12.
Okay. So foreseeable future is that you'd be buying this home for. Okay. And are you in a position to be able to put down a sizable down payment at this period of time?
I'm on the edge.
Okay. But you got enough.
Got enough. I could make that happen.
Okay. And in terms of payments based on the price points that we're looking at, that's something that you could make work today too?
That's what I'm not sure about. That's why I want the rates to go down. It just seems like a little too much
Okay. Too much on the rate or too much on the payment?
payment.
Okay. So you're concerned about what might happen if you wait, and you're thinking that waiting for the rates to drop might make this more affordable to you.
Right.
Okay. Let's play this another way then. Is do you think house prices are going to go up or down over the next 5 years?
I'm afraid they're going to drop. I'm afraid they're going to drop like 15, 20%
When?
in the next 2 years.
You do?
I want to get a deal. There's the big war going on. It seems like economy. I've seen some bad news that stock market could drop by 25%. So
Okay. So for house prices to drop significantly, that would mean that there'd have to be less people that are looking to be able to buy houses.
right.
So what would mean that there would be even less people looking to buy houses if house prices were to drop? See, the only thing that I could think that would exist that would mean that there would be less people is if the cost of money got even more expensive. That would remove buyers from the market.
Hmm.
Do you think interest rates are going to go up in years to come in order to you to be able to get a lower price point?
Well, I mean, if you look back at 2008, it did. Prices dropped. People weren't buying homes. And I'm afraid of another big 2008 recession because my family got hit really hard by that. So I think it's going to happen again.
So you think there is going to be a situation where a significant amount of subprime lending is going to get distilled down to zero, and the banks are going to be in financial jeopardy, and that there are going to be tens of thousands of people being homeless because that they are upside down on their mortgage situation?
Well, I don't know too much about those things, but I just everything I've been reading, that's what I'm afraid is going to happen. So I feel like I'm a little safer here, waiting for things to change.
Okay. So you're just about timing this right? That's what this is about. You want to buy a house, you want to time it right, you want to be able to feel confident in the decision that you're making.
I'd hate to buy a house and then everything crashes afterwards.
Okay. Well, you're looking to be there for the foreseeable future, right? This is a 5, 7, 9, 10, 15-year decision. You're in the position of being able to afford a down payment on that house right now. You'd much rather be living in this neighborhood than you are in your current neighborhood because it's a far shorter commute to work. You're going to save yourself time and money every day when you're in that situation in that new neighborhood, which has got to be worth something. And I'm guessing something significant, buying yourself back all of that time. Not only that, is that you're starting to create a home for yourself as opposed to for somebody else. In that same time period, you are going to own more of that home by making mortgage payments that you've said that are affordable to you at this period of time, although still a bit of a squeeze. Final question, I guess, though, is do you think you're going to be making more money in the future or less?
More.
So the payment is actually going to become even easier for you over time.
Yeah.
And if interest rates do drop, which we're anticipating that they potentially could or might, because you'll be earning and that you're still in the earning years of your life, you'd be in the position to refinance to a more advantageous rate then?
Yeah, probably. That makes sense.
See, here's the thing that most people seem to miss is if interest rates drop, which they are potentially likely to do at some point in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, what will happen is because we have a housing inventory in this country, is what is highly likely to happen is that means that more buyers are going to have affordability to buy homes at this price point, which means that this price point goes up. If there's anything I've experienced, and even common sense would tell me, if more than one person wants to purchase a house at one time, its price point starts to be able to creep upwards. And as interest rates drop, then what that will mean is that there are more than one people trying to look to be able to buy a house. Given the fact that you said that home ownership is important to you and that you see yourself in that neighborhood for the foreseeable future, you can afford the down payment, you can afford the monthly payment here right now, and there's a strong possibility that if you were to buy in a future market, it would be even more competitive. Can you explain to me why you wouldn't use your current strong buying position to become a homeowner whilst everybody else is hiding? Why you wouldn't choose to do it today?
Now when you say it like that.
See, I find it fascinating that so many people think that waiting is actually going to save them money. The smart people are realizing that if they're brave enough to be able to make a decision right now, then although they might have to swallow a slightly higher payment for a year or two, and it might be frustrating that it costs them a few tens or a few hundreds of dollars a month extra in a monthly payment than what they would like or what they would prefer, they're highly confident that over the long run, over 5, 7, 10-year period of time, it will mean that they can buy a house for slightly less, erode the equity position slightly more, and put themselves in a position that they are far closer to their long-term goal of overall home ownership by making a decision in what is quite a challenging market. So I'm glad that you've started to see this way around, and I'm excited about what we might be able to achieve together in the coming weeks.
So I've got this little guy back here. This is the Riddler for those that are on podcast. Questions lead the conversation. And you saw how it was all questions there for the most part. There's very little telling it's questions, because if I say it when I'm asking questions, it's hard to believe. But when you say it, and this is what you're doing, right? Yeah. So I have that back there to remind myself that I need to be asking more questions when I'm coaching, but then also to tell my coaching clients, you need to be asking more questions, because this is why. This is so much easier, because what we usually do is go, here are the 15 reasons why you should buy a house right now. And they just check out, right?
You'd be better to come up with, and I encourage you and all your coaching clients and all your listeners to do this, is write the list of all the good reasons why you shouldn't buy a house right now. Because success in selling is nothing to do with embellishing the option of yes. It's to do with destroying the option of no. So what would I look to be able to do is, if somebody doesn't meet any of these 9 big reasons why you shouldn't buy right now, by process of deduction, they probably should. And it's an easier thing to go on a discovery or an exploration with is, let's check that you're not this. Like if you're looking to buy a house for the weekend, you probably won't make any money. Like if you want to buy it this week and sell it next month, you probably won't make any money. It's probably a pretty stupid decision. If you're concerned about the future of your income and that you or somebody else involved in the purchasing process may have significant deductions to that income in the foreseeable future, then it might not be a good idea to tie yourself up with a 30-year note that's currently a stretch to you. If you're planning to move to the other side of the country in 6, 9, 12 months' time, then you probably shouldn't buy a house today. If your life circumstances are looking to change significantly, that means that your buying power could change significantly in 6 months, 12 months, etc., through inheritance or bonus or some form of giant cash injection from alternative means, and that you'd actually like to buy a bigger house than the one that you can currently afford, wait 6, 9, 12 months and buy the house that you really want.
You build so much credibility doing that. I had someone who was getting a divorce, sold his house. Right. He's like, all right, I'm ready to buy. And I was like, wait, you said you were going to maybe move to Seattle. He's like, yeah, but I need to buy a house. I was like, I get it. You want to get roots, but I'm not sure this is the best thing. He's like, you're a real estate agent. Why are you telling me not to buy a house? I was like, just on your situation, I don't think that's where you should be. And he ended up moving to Seattle. This piece about going in neutral.
Yep.
How sometimes we get desperate. I don't know if you're familiar with The Simpsons, but they have the salesman Gil. Gil needs a sale. How do we stay neutral, but also have a goal to get them where they want to go when we're in that motivation where if I don't close the deal soon, I'm done?
Part of it is to try and never be in that situation. And I think for some agents is they play high stakes Vegas rules with their career. So it's, they're rolling red and black on big, or they're sticking all of their cash on 22 black on a roulette table and hoping it's going to pay off. is I would be looking to say, how do I build a base level, recurring, more sustainable revenue or income stream into my career as quick as I possibly can? I coach and consult and train to a lot of aspiring professional speakers and people that want to build coaching, training, consulting businesses, not because it's my business, just because I've done a lot of it. And through associations and groups and teams that I'm part of, is I like to give back to my industry and help advise and guide those folks to not make some of the same mistakes that have been made in mine and my friends' careers. And one of the things I often share with those is that when it comes to building this type of business, you should follow what I call the Cupcake Principle. If you give a child a cupcake, what is the only part of the cupcake that the young infant child is interested in? The top, right? They want the frosting, the sprinkles, whatever's on the toppings. They want the good, sweet, sticky stuff. They're not interested in what's actually beneath the paper. Most people in real estate, most people in speaking, coaching, training businesses are the same. They want the sexy stuff that looks good on their Instagram, that's going to pay them the big bucks, and they're not interested in the stuff that puts oxygen or fuel in the tank that actually allows them to be able to go the distance.
Yes.
So when people are in the coaching, training, consulting business, is I say, well, like, how much money do you need to make a month in order to not go backwards, to not panic, to mean that what you can do is you can go to sleep at night? And this isn't like how much money do you want to make? It's like, where's the what keeps the lights on, what turns the lights off number? It's often about a third of the number that people started with what they thought they wanted. Once we know that number, then we say, can we build something in the base of the cupcake that means that you've got at least that sum of money? Now, what would that look like for many in the coaching, training, consulting business? It's like, oh, could you flip from your job and have one consulting client that you work 1 day a week with that pays you a monthly retainer of that sum of money, and it comes on the 21st of every month? Well, yeah, I suppose I could, but I don't really want to tie myself to one account. But like I say, but you could do it. And they're like, yeah, I could do it. Well, I said, if you didn't have to worry about paying your bills every month and you had 4 days a week to build your speaking, coaching, training, consulting business, do you think you could build it faster than if you had 5 days a week and the fear of paying your bills? And they're like, yeah, I guess I could do. I said, do you think you'd have more strength in conviction, in passion, when you are presenting your own prices towards the business you do and don't want to win, when you're not worried about paying your bills at the end of the month? Yeah, I guess I would. In the speaking business, is people often say, like, how do you get to the next level of fees? How do you grow your fees to this? And there are some things that fall into that, like stagecraft and brand and story and blah, 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 blah. But there becomes a point that the biggest thing that impacts your ability to get higher fees is your ability to walk away from lower fees. Like, you're not going to get a 6% commission if you keep saying yes to 4% commissions. To get 6% commissions, you have to have the confidence to say no to a 4.5% offer, a 5% offer, and a 5.5% offer. You have to have the strength and conviction to walk away from those lower numbers if you want the higher numbers. And that comes from you having something in the background that means that I'm never going to need to play desperate. And I know this might sound a little counterintuitive towards other people's advice, but if you want to go the distance in real estate, you might need a part-time job. You might need to have, particularly in a market like the one we're in right now, you might need to work for a property management company part-time that opens doors, gives you leads, but pays your wage. You might decide that actually what I'm going to do is drive Uber for some guaranteed quick short-term cash, aka oxygen, which is what I call it, to be able to fuel a business that also gives you the ability to meet new people. You might decide that you could be a server in a restaurant or a bar because guess what? I'm prospecting and networking and putting oxygen in the tank for me to be able to go the distance. Is if you are truly desperate, you're probably not a good pick. So I'd play to not need to be desperate than to say, how do I convince somebody to choose me when my inside voice is like, I need this, I need this. One caveat: if you are in a situation where you really need it, just tell the truth.
Wow.
Just tell the seller is, look, I've been at this real estate game for 6 months. I thought I'd be getting clients earlier. I know that when given an opportunity that I can do an absolutely incredible job, But I do need to let you know that I haven't sold a single home because I haven't been given the opportunity to sell a single home. And that if I don't have the ability to be able to sell your home today, then I'm probably going to have to start looking for another career. So what that means to you is that if you're to put your trust in me to be able to sell this home on your behalf, then you're going to get my full commitment, my full dedicated effort. Because I tell you what, as much as the selling this house means a lot to you in this context, I'm pretty sure it actually means more to me than it even means to you. And if you want an agent that is going to take this at a level that it means more than life itself, then I'd love it if you give us a shot. I think tell your truth. Present your truth honestly, and somebody is either going to be like, I'm up for being a writer in the story and being the producer of this life-changing moment for this young man or woman. Or they're going to say, good luck with whatever you've got going on, but you're not the guy for me. But at least it's done with honesty.
Selling with integrity. I love it. Well, I appreciate so much your time here with us today. How can people find out more about you, buy your books, etc.?
Yeah, pretty easy to find. If you go to Google and put Phil space M space Jones, you should find me on your chosen platform or chosen way to be able to dig into our material. I say use the M because Phil Jones is a fairly common name, also happens to be the name of a Manchester United soccer player or ex-Manchester United soccer player, depending upon when you're listening to this. And I've been hustling that dude for Google rankings for quite some time. But then again, if you want to just continue the conversation and there's something in today's discussion that's been useful, come over, follow me on Instagram. It's at Phil M Jones UK. Shoot us a note in the DMs. Love to be able to continue the conversation. And when you send a message, just mention that Mike sent you and that you were listening to the show, and we'll pick up the conversation from where we've left off right here.
Awesome, Phil. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.